replay, but it's going to take a couple of minutes for people to come in.
Perfect.
I'm going to tag you. I'll tag you on the. I'll tag you on this. All right, let's see. Let's see if it's up. So, okay. This is perfect. This is perfect Soulogy style. We get to know somebody in front of all of our friends. All we know about you is that you're friends with Michael, which we won't hold against you. Okay, I just tagged you. Yeah, it's tagged. All right, so let me go to back here. Okay, here we go. We got 10 people in the house, so they're starting to come in. Give it about another 30 seconds. So, what part of the world are you in?
I am in Ontario, Canada,
Okay,
currently located in a small town that
okay.
most people probably have never heard of.
What is it? What's the name of it?
Um, Mount Forest.
Mount Forest. Sounds like a cool place. Is there a mountain nearby?
There's no mountain nearby,
Oh,
no.
it's just the name. There you go.
Yeah,
So, where is
just
that?
the
Is that
name.
in like the central time zone?
Eastern Standard
Oh, you're
Time.
Eastern.
So
Okay.
we're about, I'd say a good 2.5 hours from Toronto,
Oh, really?
about an hour from Kitchener.
Okay. So you got two pretty big cities fairly close to each other. That sounds like the Northeast, you know, Canada, I mean,
Hmm.
U.S., where you have all the people in the big cities. So, yeah, I'm glad that you came in. Thanks for coming in and sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence. Uh, you come through Michael, who was just on a couple of days ago. It's always a good talking to him. I have a feeling birds of a feather flock together. Have you known Michael long?
Um, I've had him on Facebook for I'm not quite sure how long. I meet people that are meant to be in my life, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So when this journey started for me, about I'm gonna say 2 years ago. Okay, so around the beginning of this whole pandemic and everything, I was just adding people left, right, and center, and just expanding it because I was a seeker. I sought out the truth,
Right.
right? Michael always says I'm very inquisitive. So I wanted answers from a very young age. So I came across Michael, and then one day I just went to his profile and it said philosopher. So I called him on Facebook Messenger and we talked for hours.
Wow.
And from there, we just become really close. And all friendships have ups and downs. The best part about life is if it's meant to be, if it's in your soul contract, nothing is going to pull you apart because it's magnetism, right? It's just
Yeah.
meant to be. So we've become close, and I've learned so much from him. And I'm a devout admirer that I started a new series called the School of Thought because school is about students and teachers coming together. So when you said the Zen proverb, that really resonated with me during your talk with Michael.
Hmm.
We can let go or be dragged. So the Life of Pi movie was inspirational for me because the concept of uh, monism, unifying all of the religions and bringing them together because they all say the same song, same dance, universe, the unified, um, the unified information theory, bringing everything together. So children should be taught how how to think for themselves. So
Yeah.
Life of Pi was very inspirational for me
I haven't
because
I haven't seen that
yes, the
movie.
world,
Are you talking about the movie, right? Or the book?
the movie where the child gets lost,
Okay.
there's a shipwreck, and then he's in the boat with the tiger. He has
Yes.
to learn to get along with the tiger, and then he almost dies on an island, comes back and writes a book about it. It was beautiful.
Wow. I'm gonna have to check that out. That sounds like my kind of movie. So you said that 2 years ago, a lot of people come on here and they talk about, you know, an awakening experience, and I think there's been a lot of them since 2012, many since before. We've had many people on the show that long before 2012, but it seems like that there's been a huge influx that has come in with the whole COVID suggestive programming, or whatever you want to call it, or however you want to identify it. Had you already, do you feel like you had already kind of had a wake up experience, or kind of was plugged in, or did it get accelerated with COVID?
To answer that question, so from a very young age, I was always inquisitive, wanted to know the secrets of the universe, because deep within my soul, I already knew that what I was being preached and taught just wasn't so, right?
Yeah.
And my name, like I've decoded my life pretty much from top to bottom. So when I was in Ottawa, I learned a lot about the pharmaceutical industry and mental health, and that's something that's very near and dear to my heart. Psychology, I love studying psychology. Now it's all about quantum, but we're beyond quantum at this point. We're all quantum beings. We're all quantum programmers. We're Tesla towers.
Yeah.
So when I started putting all these pieces together, and all these people started coming into my life, there's no coincidences. There's only energy, synchronicity, and intent, which combine to create that spontaneous manifestation of our subconscious thoughts, right? So when I learned that everything is coinciding with everything and that there's no accidents, all this information started piecing it together. The people that were coming into my life were just reminding me of who I, more importantly than who, what I knew. And someone told me recently, I know more than I think I do. Um, Michael always says to trust our feelings. So to answer your question, COVID was a wake-up call about 2 years ago, right? Because we really were just remembering what we forgot. We're being activated, right? Coronal mass ejections, CME, gamma ray radiation. Majestic 12 talks about this. Because of the energetic shifts in consciousness from what's coming into Earth's atmosphere, and and how that works with our DNA and consciousness, the children. This is why um, they're so dialed in and hyper focused. Children are pure and innocent because they're tapped into their imagination. They can see beyond the thought. The children that are being born right now, their intelligence is something like their IQ, emotional or EQ. Sorry, um, their EQ is something like 400 times the previous generation.
Wow.
And I had someone verify this who was not born in a hospital. A friend of hers, she's like, this child's only like 4 or 6 months old, and they're doing things that a child should not be doing at that age.
Wow. I hadn't heard that before, but it makes a lot of sense because people were talking about we've had young people on the show, and we've had their parents, and just through other anecdotes, people talking about their interaction with these children from the womb forward. Some experiences, mothers
Yes.
with the child in the womb, and then of course, toddlers and young kids, and then even into the teens and early 20s, how they're bringing something to the table that hasn't been prevalent. But I've never heard anyone talk about, and it makes sense to me, the emotional quotient. 400 times more. I mean, that's like, this speaks to presence with self and being in touch with themselves to the point where they're not going to do things they don't feel comfortable doing, right? I mean, that's kind of where we're all getting, right? We're learning to say no. We're learning to respect ourselves, take care of ourselves, and that's interesting. And you mentioned psychology, and I'm like you. I'm a very curious person, so this format is great for me because it's a conversation. I can ask questions. But I've had this, you know, we know this is the age of the Trinity. You can say Father, Son, Holy Ghost, masculine, feminine, golden child. There's a lot of triads you can, and I look at. I guess you would say like higher self, soul would be one, conscious would be another, and subconscious would be the other. And because of shadow work and zero pointing and the things that we have all taken on as we've been on this path and shared together, there's obviously unlocking those things that are in the subconscious seem to be the avenue for, let's just say, more alignment in the Trinity energy. What is your take on the subconscious, like its role? How do you get to it? How do you find things in it? And because to me, it's like a big mystery. Even with all the work that we've done, it's still something out there going, like I think, is it a bottomless pit? Is it connected to, infinite intelligence? Why have these things been blacked out? What's your take on the subconscious?
So, different people break it down differently. Um, my view of the world, how I see things, is very different to um, how they actually teach psychology, right? Because psychology, at its bare essence, at its core root, is the connection between the mind, body, and soul. And some people use soul and spirit interchangeably, but it works colloquially as well. So, because intention is the most important, our subconscious, if you study micro expressions at all, there's a great series called Lie to Me.
Lie to me?
And our Lie to Me, yes, they're not airing it anymore, unfortunately, but it was an amazing series. So, consciousness to me is becoming more aware of our own awareness. So, if you dive into the etymological origins of consciousness, awareness is right in there at the top. So becoming aware of our awareness. Now our subconscious is like um, the hard drive,
Okay.
kind of like the hard drive, because we're essentially quantum batteries, right? So it's like the hard drive, but it's multifaceted. It retains everything. So with micro expressions, our body doesn't distinguish between um, analyzing anything. It just receives. So our body will always tell the other individual how we are feeling, or pretty much what we're thinking, based off micro expressions, fractions of seconds, right? So it doesn't even have to be a full second. But you can tell if someone's genuine, even if they're faking it,
Hmm.
because the eyes don't lie. They're the windows to the soul,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
So that's why sociology is so important. When I was interviewing a quantum physicist and astrologer, he said you can always tell where the smartest people in the room are. And I don't like generally comparing intelligence, like emotional EQ, emotional quotient, right, is super important because the IQ test that they give us, it's not full spectrum. It's a very narrow spectrum, right? So you can always tell uh, who is the most observant
Right.
or smartest, whichever way you want to,
Right.
however it resonates, right?
Who listens more and talks
Why is
less?
the quietest? Because they're like the deer, right?
Yeah.
So deers are graceful and observant. Think of the Department of Energy, DOE, doe. It's a female deer. That's the emotions and the feelings, your divine feminine energy. Feeling the emotions, and then the logic will, um, for any overthinker, they'll try to quantify the emotions, and that's why people who have dealt with anxiety, um, they'll be anyone's best friends because they've already analyzed every possible scenario that could happen and they've deduced it down to what the truth is. So it's very hard to lie to someone who has anxiety because they're very in tune with their feelings. You've been taught anxiety is bad. It's not bad. they're empathic. That's all that is.
Right. Right. Yeah. Um, One of my kids hit me up the other day, 19, about to be 20, and she was like, I feel insecure. I feel anxiety. Um, and in other words, she was saying, I'm on it. I get it. It's affecting my relationships and it comes from within myself. And I'm thinking, wow, like, wow, she doesn't even tune into shows like this every day and she's on it. So that's a kind of a testament to what you were talking about with these kids. Um, and so to me, what she was doing what we've been doing, which is seeking that which is within her consciousness in the subcategory of subconscious and trying to find out what is the root of it, which takes me back to what I said earlier, asked about earlier, which you said something very interesting. So, like the consciousness is the hard drive. Are you including the subconscious in that, or what? What if
Okay.
the? Go ahead.
Um, there's a book called How to Understand Your Bible. And in that book, they talk about the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Tree of life, um, that is our kind of like a life force, in a way. So that's our arterial system, right? So that's our heart. And the sun powers our heart,
Mm,
right? So that's our arterial system, that's our blood. The tree of knowledge of good and evil, that is our nervous system
mm,
with its roots in the brain. So our bodies run on pulsed direct current, not alternating current, pulsed direct current. So that's why the two pillars, right? This is why 9/11 was so important, because you have the severity and then the mercy in the middle. That's the balance. So when they knock those two pillars down, there was so much symbolism in there. So much.
so that's pretty deep stuff. Was it so like when the pillars came down metaphorically, that leaves the space of what was in the middle, or how would you appraise that?
Well, so the Matrix 4 just recently came out.
Right.
And you have Neo and you have Trinity, right? And there's a decoder that I know, Logan, Decode Your Reality on YouTube. He talked about this. Um, so he ties in um, the elementary table, um, all of the elements, right, on the periodic table. And he said he broke down their names, where they lived, the digits of pi, um, the numerology of it, all of it, electric, magnetic, right? So men are more like electric, and
Right.
the female are more magnetic, right? But you start going further down into the quantum realm, and you realize that really everything is just all the same thing.
Right.
So that's why the duality and polarization is important, because it's just like a mirror,
Right.
right? And then the balance is in the middle. It's like the pendulum swing, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, especially with what you said about the circulatory system, and then the nervous system. So there you have, by your explanation, which makes sense to me, you have the physical reality of the quantum or the energetic field in the physical form. So in essence, if I'm getting you right, which makes sense to me, and I've just never looked at it to that depth of physicality, which is what you're saying is that the circulatory system is magnetic and the nervous system is electric, right? And we have both. Those are the towers. We have both that are living
Well, the
simultaneously,
two towers is severity and mercy,
severity and
right?
mercy. But I
It's
mean,
kind of
like,
the
like
balance of good and evil.
I
So
got you.
no, any individual is just good, or just evil. Like
Right.
karma, for example. I used to think it was fugazi, fake, because good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. But
Hmm.
none of us are good or bad.
Right.
We are. Um, there's a quote I came across: "All the heavens, all the hells, all the angels, all the demons, all the gods, all you know, they're all within." And this is why Jesus said, when asked when the kingdom of heaven was approaching, he said, "It is not here or there, for behold, the kingdom of God is within." And that's also an ancient Egyptian proverb. The kingdom of heaven is within,
Right.
and any man who knows himself shall find it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, so much of our experience, or really all of our experience, is seeing polarity, duality, with its emphasis on polarity. And then, of course, bringing it to that space in between, right? I mean, when you get right down to it, I mean, you could say neutralizing the charge of any perception, or however you want to put it. And going back to the body thing, because now I'm totally intrigued. I see like the circulatory system is the feminine, the the nervous system, the masculine, and we actually have both running physically in our body at the same time, and it makes the saying of mind, like heart, mind, and soul, or however you want to put it. But like, how do you how do you calibrate the circulatory system with the nervous system? Like, I don't know, the way you've presented that, it brings in a whole new component or a new way to look at it that actually uh, allows us to go deeper, or I would say, instead of approaching it from an emotional standpoint, to go from, let's say, the head to the heart, or
Mm-hmm.
a mental standpoint of affirmations and chants or something. But now you have something else presented in front of you, which is these actually live inside of you. And here's how it is. It's almost like you take an overlay of the circuit and then you put an overlay of the circulatory system onto the electrical circuit, or vice versa. They actually can run together in harmony, which I would imagine takes into account,
Harmonics.
yeah, it takes into account like diet, and everybody's different, but I mean, diet, exercise, it just takes on something that I really hadn't thought about when it comes to coordinating and bringing an equilibrium to the overall function of the body, which is the temple, right?
Yes,
Far out.
this is why we have two, because it houses the God within, the third eye, right? So you were talking about balance. We have three brains in our body. Um,
Right.
so the mind and the brain are kind of two different things. Because I look at the universe as God's mind, right? We're a thought in God's mind. So we came from source, because they say the Big Bang, right? Well, when the sperm, boom, shoots, that's kind of like the Big Bang, right?
Mm-hmm.
Big burst of energy, and then when it hits and goes into, the flash is created. So that's kind of the Big Bang right there. But reconciling the two, bringing the contrast together. Um, so you have your brain, which is like the CPU, and then you have your gut brain, right? That's your feelings. That's your solar plexus. And then you have your heart. So when people say speak from the heart, that's why 6 feet is so important right now, because of the increased conductivity of the electrical frequency at this particular moment in time. Our heart energy, right? An electrocardiogram measures the electromagnetic frequency, how far out our heart energy can emanate from the 0 point. So they know that it can go to 6. It can go beyond that. It just depends on how dialed in people are. So they don't want that connection, because it's scientifically proven that hugs have healing capabilities.
Yeah.
Just like cats are walking crystals, their purrs, their vibrational frequency physically heals ailments. Scientifically proven.
Hmm. And did you say that's why 6G or 6D is important?
Oh, no, no, no. I said 6 feet.
Oh, 6 feet. I got you. I
Six
got you.
feet.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Six is a very sacred number.
Yeah.
Just depends on the intention of the one that's using it, right?
Right.
So you see a lot of spiritual people do this, or the upside down, right? In Buddhism or Hinduism, which is the Chun Mudra, the consciousness mudra, you're actually connecting certain nerve endings, which are sending electrical impulses to your brain, and that's doing something internally. So it's all about how we're wired.
Yeah.
It's all about how we're wired internally, right? We're the greatest walking quantum computer. Humans are on literally on the cusp of greatness.
I agree.
So when people talk about enlightenment and that we need to drop our ego, um, I don't generally like talking about this, but I feel it needs attention because the Tao is the path, right? I've heard it said that in the Bible, the original translation was, in the beginning was the Tao, the path. All paths lead home,
Right.
right? All roads lead to Rome, basically. So there's not just one path. So Michael really helped um, enlighten me to this fact that the ego in metaphysics is the self that which thinks, feels, and acts. So if we dropped our ego or had an ego death, we wouldn't exist anymore because then we wouldn't be thinking, we wouldn't be feeling, and we wouldn't be acting,
Right.
right? So it's just a balancing of that pendulum.
Yeah.
The center, the very center, the creation point. So triggers are super important because there are guides. What do we need to resolve, right? The universe speaks if we know the signs and we're paying attention. We can't if we're hyper focused on just one thing, we're not seeing the bigger picture.
Right.
10,000 foot view, right?
Yeah. So, do you think that in the last 2 years that overall, I mean, I know there's a lot of ways to look at, is there more energy coming to the earth? Is there more universal consciousness or energy, a broadening, let's just say a broadening experience or broadening field of a potential? Um, do you feel like that, given the the movie that's playing out or presented and what's occurring, is creating more triggers for the individual person, regardless of what circles they run in this world?
Yes. So to answer that, a friend of mine in South Africa, he started up an organization called Earth United. The concept of it behind it was beautiful because how cool would it be when people ask where we're from? I'm from Earth,
Right.
no borders.
Right.
So there was a series on Disney Plus called Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They were the flag smashers, and they were looked at as terrorists. And it was such a beautiful because everything's flipped, right? Of course, the freedom fighters, the sentient beings that just believe in freedom of expression and free will, they're looked down upon.
Right.
But he brought on a military white hat. Her name was she was given a code name, her face hidden, her voice modulated, and she didn't even want to come out. But it scared her how much disinformation was in the truth networks
Yes.
because she calls them discovery networks. because we are the truth. We're just discovering information or re-remembering it. And this is what she said. They've had quantum computing since the 1990s in the digital realm, right? The digitalization. She was actually instrumental in creating the internet, the interconnected network of networks. This is what she said, and I quote, identification of everyone is the ultimate in data collection, right? So what you do, how you do, what you think, how you think, why you think, they can easily create a news story and they can tell what you are going to get out of it and what you're going to go look up because of it.
Right. Wow.
Information is knowledge. Knowledge is power, right? It's the hierarchy. It's the pyramid. That's the 33 in sacred geometry, right? Pyramids, very sacred. Nikola Tesla, obsessed with them. Obsessed with them. So that's why they use the pyramid. Nothing's ever evil or good.
Right.
It's perception.
Right.
How we look at it, right? Movies, Disney, Netflix. A lot of people have canceled because of cuties, right? The TV or the movie. I used to look at the world like that. Um, Now I see truth in everything because the absolute encompasses all of the
That's
paradoxical
right.
truths and beliefs within it. Because if you can think it, if you can believe it, if you can feel it, guess what? It's true because that experience happened. How could we ever tell someone that their experience is wrong
Right.
or not true?
Right.
So this is why words have power, because the more consciously aware that we are of our projections that we're putting out, our vibration and frequency. For example, like telling someone that they're wrong. Well, they exist. They're not wrong. They're precious. We might not agree with what they say, but that's just might be a trigger and something that we need to learn. So I came up with this concept. Everything is a projection and reflection of nothing. We're the projectors
Right.
and we're the mirrors to other people. So that's what enjoy the show is.
Right.
Enjoy the show because we're
So,
creating script.
yes. Okay. I got this. I'm hearing you. So going back to this show, the one that you talked about that the lady, the white hat, had come in. What's the name of that show?
It's not okay. He's had multiple YouTube accounts,
Okay. Oh,
and
it's a YouTube
because
channel. Okay.
yes, so but they're gone. They're completely gone.
Okay.
They're
Okay. So
obliterated.
let's just skip over that because somebody had
Um,
asked. But
Odyssey. It's on Odyssey. So he has all of them mirrored on Odyssey. A lot of the stuff was on Patreon, like the deep stuff. I
okay.
have the links, so if anyone wants them, I can send out. I can send them to you,
Yeah,
but they're all like individual links.
I got you.
So it's a good thing he had someone was backing that up. But some of the talks are on Odyssey,
Okay.
so it's
I,
I'll send you all the
I'd love
links.
to
It's
have the
probably
links. Yeah, I'd love to dive into that. So, okay. So, like, kind of as a backdrop or a lead up, using this example, and there's been other things that I think, would align with what this lady was saying, which is the quantum, we'll just say the quantum AI capabilities that have been around a lot longer than we might think, that not only can, let's just say, mass consciousness be directed and orchestrated, and you could even say manipulated to go a certain way, but they'd also have the ability to see, to learn more, to find out, what the probabilities are based on what we go search for after something's presented to us. So then take that on one hand, and then what you said, which is very true, in terms of like the example of the show Cuties and people leaving Netflix. Because there's a lot of discussion over the years about don't look at that and it'll go away. But what I'm getting from you, even it makes more sense. Not that I thought that that made sense because it's there for a reason. But if you use the example that you're giving with Netflix and you use that as a microcosm of the whole of what you're talking about and what this lady was talking about, two things. One, no matter what the intention is of those who might initiate the types of programming as a result of the information they get from the quantum AI computer, that with that comes and is the same substance that makes you up, makes me up, and everything else up, and there's a certain divine balance and give and take to everything. But secondly, in terms of what is that, how do I relate to that from the human experience? If a show comes on, and let's just say in this case it's Cuties, and I'm a Netflix follower or a Netflix subscriber, and I see it and I get offended and shut it down, I haven't made it go away. But the idea from what you're saying, which to me is a great physical example of what we're doing overall, what we're learning to do, and that is to be able to have anything presented to us in whatever form or fashion it is, and stay in that observation mode, gather the code that you need, and move forward. And so you're not negating that which may have at one time offended you, but you're neutralizing your energy field as a result of what you've seen. Okay, and you're not the mouse in the in the maze, in the grid, chasing the carrot or the cheese at the direction of someone that has, say, some information that you don't have, be it esoteric or quantum computer information that hasn't been shared to you. So I like that because you're not wishing something away. You're observing it. You're seeing for what it is. You're seeing it in the same field that everything is, and you're simply choosing what frequencies you want to hang out in. Something like that.
Yes, yes. They did a video called Hyperfocus. We warned you this would happen because everything is known, okay? That doesn't mean that any one individual knows everything. Collectively, we know everything. And we're capable of receiving that information, right? So, when it comes to information, there's a quote that goes along the lines of the psychic flourishes in the same water that, or no, there's the mystic,
the madman, yeah,
and then and then like, okay, so you go deep into the rabbit holes. Two things can happen. You're either gonna have a psychotic break, or you're gonna come out as a warrior for peace, justice, and truth. So I now say, I will truth. What will you? Because through the truth, you'll get peace. But peace is an internal process.
Yeah.
The battle is first won in the mind, and that's why like all data is it's valuable. So
Yes.
I was triggered. I pretty much had a psychotic break, and this is why psychiatry, the smart people, they go after. And it's a fascinating concept, psychology, because consciousness is information. So it goes back to hyperfocus. Anyone who says that they cannot be programmed, they're deceiving themselves.
Right.
Because everything is programming.
Right.
The only difference is we can choose what we want to program.
Bingo.
Right? So it's whatever we focus on with our energy and intent, we're creating a beautiful garden by, some weeds are good, some are bad, but it's that balancing. So wherever we put energy into, we are creating whatever we have in here, we're projecting it
Yeah.
externally, and that is what we call manifestation, right?
Yeah. And now we're becoming more conscious of our abilities. And I love what you said too, because it's like the, excuse me, it's like the, the glass is half full or half empty, or one man's treasure is another man's trash, and I'm talking like energetically, right? Like, so the reality is they're both true, but which one do you want to create as a conscious quantum creator? Another example that's along the lines of what you're talking about that I found very interesting about 10 days ago. I don't know if you've ever heard of Gigi Young. She's on YouTube. Gigi Young.
Sounds familiar, yeah.
So she's been around for quite some time. She downloads, she shares a lot of information, does a lot of research, but she put together a series called The Mars Myth. And I believe there's 5 videos in it. And the crux of it is this, that on or about the 1930s, the ET involvement started to occur, beginning with the Nazis in Germany, post-World War I. They have all this technology and et cetera, and we kind of know, anyone that's done any research can get into the narrative of the Nazis, Operation Paperclip and
It goes deep.
the population, populating of the NASA and CIA, and so on and so on and so on. Right now, what was interesting, because I'm real big on what you're saying. Everything's a program, including ascension. All right, but
Absolutely.
if I choose that program to play in, then that's what I will be perpetuating. Now, going back to what she was saying and tying it into what you were saying, including that white hat you were talking about, is that what she's saying is forget about the narratives, that the Nazis went here and then they went to Antarctica and Admiral Byrd, forget about all that. These are kind of my words of explaining what she really brought out, which was on or about the 1930s. It's pretty substantial or provable that a new narrative was being seeded. And that narrative was that there is a species or a group of species that basically are our progenitors that came in, and there was a Homo sapien and came in and played with our DNA, and then all this stuff happens from there. And that slowly over time, including kind of a rollout in the 90s with the New Age philosophy, that really what's underneath it all is that the subtle creation of a one world religion where everybody speaks in terms of what we speak in these communities, right? So it's not an attack or a program of a narrative. It's a subtle initiation and implementation of a consciousness that we're all one, that we came from ETs. And it's not really saying that it did or didn't happen, but what it's saying, or what she's saying, is that in itself is a program or a narrative that you can adopt, or what she adopts is that there is a natural, cosmically, universally orchestrated evolution of the human species that in its own right cannot be stopped, regardless of what is put before us. And I thought, wow, that wipes out all the narratives, and that puts me back in that place that you're bringing out for me, which is the glass is half full or half empty. I'm going to choose half full.
They're both right.
Right. They're both right. They're both right. But which one am I going to perpetuate with my own intention? Because it's like the chicken and the egg, right? I mean, so which one am I going to move forward in? And I always used to say this to myself when I first woke up, or I guess my soul would say it. It would say, because I'd say, okay, I got 90% of this. Where's the other 10? They're like, you're never going to get the other 10. The other 10 is the wild card. The other 10 is the great unknown. It's the chicken and the egg. What came first, the father or the mother, right? It's that whole thing. And
There's no right answer.
what my soul would say to me would say, how do you know that what's going to happen, to include what happens to you after physical death, is not going to be, it's not going to be predicated by your own belief moving forward.
Predetermined, you mean?
Yeah, in other words, it's determined by what you're thinking, to include, am I going to be worm dirt when this is over, or am I actually a soul that's going to go somewhere else? Because exactly, right? So which one are you going to follow, right? And I used to say back to my soul, well, I'm going to follow this path, that I'm an eternal soul, and everything I do is going to keep carrying forward whatever energy level I'm at, or whatever frequency, band of frequencies I'm at when I physically perish, is going to continue, right? Like, you know what I mean? And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I won't even know, because I'll be worm dirt.
Well, the movie Eternals that came out recently
Okay.
is very important. See, predictive programming, because of how the universe operates, and the ones in charge, let's call them forces, even though everything is influences and guides, because
Right.
the most basic universal law is free will. The golden rule is golden for a reason, right? So they're aware and have to adhere to spiritual and universal laws. So predictive programming is important. You brought up World War II, right? And World War II, V touches on this, but it was World War II. So they had records of Sanskrit documents of ancient celestial weapons.
Right.
And that's where the Eternals ties in, because World War II was a battle to find all of this. Going back to the chicken or the egg, the whole concept of right and wrong, a lot is in the gray. 10% truth, 10% lies, 80% ambiguity, right? So which came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, they're both right. So because source, right? Some say God, some say creator, some say source. What is the source? The source is the alpha point, right? That's your 0 point energy, the berry center. And the 0 is 3.14. 3.14 mirrored is what? It's pi. So 0 in Sanskrit came from cipher, which literally means any numeral. So if we look at things from the perception, which is the lens of the 0th dimension, then in doing that we can see everyone's perspective and appreciate them for helping us and teaching us. Then we can become the students, and then we can use that and teach more people, right? Because none of us know everything.
Mm-mm.
But it's a beautiful concept when people come together, right? And that's the holy grail right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Christ's blood.
Yeah.
That's your Christ consciousness, the Christos,
Yeah.
the Savior, healer, activation, ascension, Jacob's ladder. So many different words for it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot to be said, from my perspective anyway. There's a lot to be said for this experience and what's unique to it, in that we have an externalization of what happens within us. So, for instance, we talk about sacred marriage within, and then you see more and more relationships that are occurring that are conscious, that still take a willful human effort to overcome those things which we overcome on an individual basis, but now you're doing it two as one, which is no cakewalk. But my point is that for me, that's what really seems to be the portal of magic, is the collaboration and co-creation, right? Like, this happens within us. We create universes. We've come into this experience with all of that, but what we haven't come into this experience with at this level of density is to be able to sit across from each other openly and bravely and create and collaborate together. And I think that's in a state of presence that we haven't had before. Thank you, COVID. Right? Like, I mean, there just seems to be an individual attribute or characteristic or symptom of what's been occurring, which is colossal. And again, nobody knows everything, but something's happening where we're being more present with ourselves. It's in turn happening with what our external mirror, and that where two or more gather, those words of the Bible, coming back and meaning so much more, which is, I say over and again, to me, it's spontaneous, a permanent spontaneity. It's not like a temporary thing. Intuition, obviously, creativity, imagination, and courage, because of the path that we've walked and the paradigm that we've come from and the conditioning and programming. So, I like the way that you look at things, because you're not leaving anything out. And no matter where you stand in the spectrum, you're treating each polarity or each duality as equal in reverence, honor, respect, love. It's all the same. And which, and to me, from the standpoint of being a quantum creator, that everything is the God substance, everything is the goddess substance, whatever you want to call it, everything. That space in between the towers is the same atomic structure, whatever you want to call it, as the towers, right? And that when you understand that, that means that you have a common denominator, which is probably not a good description, with any and all energies external, and therefore you can work with it in the process of transformation, which truly is in itself conception and conception, fertilization, and creation being, let's say, the soulgasm, or the force of that what did you call it? The big blast of the Big Bang.
The Big Bang. It's deeper than that, obviously. It's all in the V information series, but there was a planet called Tiamat and Marduk that collided eventually, and that's where we get this story of Superman and Supergirl. Their planet got wiped out. So it's the one thing that we have to remember, and I just noticed we hit 77 viewers here. Numbers are important.
Yes, they are.
This is a multi-dimensionality. It's a multi-dimensional spiritual war. Okay, this isn't just happening in the physical realm, right? So the whole dimension thing, perception, right? We can appreciate all information depending on what dimension we're at. Just determines what level of comprehension we have of that information, right? Just give me 1 second. So that goes back to what you were just discussing. Perception. Everything is. Everything is information. If you're standing to the right of a 9 or to the left of a 9, you're going to get a 6 or a 9. But it's
Jimi
the same
Hendrix.
thing. It's just mirrored. Right?
And another show that I have tapped into from time to time is Intuition by Matthias De Stefano on Gaia, and very interesting. I think it's so interesting how his life has obviously got more exposure, but it parallels so many of the people that come on this show, like following inner guidance, doing things that don't make any sense, having divine episodes and revelations. But one of the things he talks about is his knowledge or understanding of the journey of the soul, and how, I guess in essence, and I'll just put it in my own words, my own terms, at certain dimensions, at certain levels, essentially what's happening is your perception, or I should say perspective, becomes more and more and more multifaceted. So in other words, the more, just to put it in human terms, the more spaces you can hold in other people's shoes, there's an automatic higher alignment or greater balance or whatever you want to call it that occurs. So why wouldn't that apply to this earth? My wife has a great saying, which has to me taken on more and more meaning to greater depth. And if you just look at the Big Bang versus the fertilization of an egg in the womb, a copy is a copy is a copy. So if we can take on more perspectives, or as we take on more perspectives, which seems to be happening as people are starting to be uncharged by the duality and the polarity, then something's happening within us. And as you said at the top of the show, the kingdom is within, which then is reflecting outward like a tuning fork. And that whole thing that's bigger than all of us seems to be assisting us, almost like we're at a cycle of cycles. You mentioned Sanskrit, people talk about the yuga. I mean, like, but it just seems like, and again, going back to what you had talked about earlier on the show I did with Michael, let go or be dragged.
Yeah.
That's kind of a blunt way of saying it, but what does that actually mean? Let go actually means, I recognize what I'm a part of.
Is it happening to us?
Yeah.
Or through us?
Yes.
Right? Are we the victim or are we the creator? Which one? Well, we get to choose because of free will, right?
Right. And that's the thing too, the whole stay in your own lane. I mean, you see less and less projection in, let's just say, these communities that I'm involved in and you're involved in. You see less and less projection. It was interesting the other day when that whole Will Smith thing happened. It was interesting and comical, and actually, to me, important information and code to see the reaction of the communities being divided by something so innate.
The memes,
right?
We're great. Like,
now the thing
just
that
as an observer,
but the thing that I saw,
to watch them unfold, because
yeah,
what B was talking about, they know how to manipulate consciousness at very high and intricate levels. So as the observer, quantum physics, right? Nothing observed by the observer is unobserved by the observer. So sitting back and watching everything that has been predicted by psychics, military, intelligence, Q, whatever, sitting back and watching it unfold is kind of beautiful in a way, because it's the experiences that define who we are, what we are, and where we go forward.
Yeah. The thing that I noticed about it too was it didn't last. Like, if we look at our own internal growth, individual growth over the last few years, I don't think there's anyone here that wouldn't say it's coming faster, it's coming bigger, but I'm able to take it in and process it faster. So watching that whole little thing pop up, it only lasted a couple of days, and it reminded me a lot of what I call the false flag frequency. If you go back to 9/11 and then move forward from there, you had shootings, you had this, you had that, you had propaganda in, let's say, Syria, weapons of mass destruction. I mean, all these things that didn't turn out to be what they were presented. And so now when a false flag frequency comes forth, it triggers, and then we process, and then we move forward, right? With less charge. So to me, that was the good thing that I saw in that ridiculous presentation. I was a little bit shocked when I saw all the people going, oh, he deserved it. And I'm like, what? But then it was gone. As quick as it came, it was gone. And I think that is an indicator as within, without, and the power of our individual transformation / collective collaboration and acknowledgement of each other that, hey, we all put our shoes on the same way, and we've all been subjected to the human condition. And let's start looking at what occurs after these triggers. We know that there's going to be an influx of a higher consciousness or a broader awareness that, we can start to look at these things for the value that they've offered us.
I had a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the biggest things that really shifted my perception was time. What we call time. Okay? Because there's the man-made construct, and then there's what it actually is.
Right.
If we remove the veil. So it's a two-part question. Do you feel that time is speeding up? Part one. Part two, how do you define time?
Okay. So 2 quick things, and then I'll answer. One is Morgan and I understood that she needed to go to Australia 11 months ago. We worked hard to be together. We've had a long, divine journey. It was that in that 10% space, the higher guidance is saying this has to happen. Like everything else with all of us, you need to do this. And you're like, well, what's going to happen? Well, you don't know, but we'll tell you when you get there. So as a result of that, I immediately looked at it from my own perspective and went, okay, I know what we have here. This is we're definitely getting into something that's going to have a payoff. What can I do to reduce the human condition in terms of being charged by this in sadness and grief or whatever? And the first thing I went to was time. And I said, okay, time is not what it is. It's already doing funny things. A lot of people talked about it. And so I'm gonna take that out. Because I know when we see each other again, it's going to be like it was just yesterday, right? And so I've kind of approached it that way. Now, another example, and then I'll answer the question. I went Friday night on April 1st. I had this incredible day. I talked about it, so I'm not going to go real deep. But in that day, like a lot of us, starting to have more palpable, I would say like dimensional-esque experiences in my waking state. Now, this went on all day, and after a very full day, I said, I'm going to go get some gumbo. And I went to a bar restaurant, sat at the bar, only seat in the house. It's very loud, and I'm having to let things go. Let things go. It's loud in here. How am I going to enjoy this? Let it go. Well, as I did that, everything became a much greater sensory, dimensional-esque type of experience. And as I'm getting ready to leave, I had noted the clock at 8:30, and these men that were next to me that were drunk, 10 seconds after I noted it, they said, oh, it's 8:30 and we're already drunk, And so I knew that there was a relevance to that. So when I get up to leave, which was three parts of an order later, appetizer, take home, and the soup, 3 or 4 beverages, people coming in and out, only 9 minutes had passed. Okay, so like an hour and a half of stuff, 9 minutes had passed. So what I was being shown was that as I release these judgments and let go of these things that I don't need to bring forward in the form they're in because they're charged Oh, I was a victim. Oh, why did they say that to me? Oh, why is the noise so loud in this restaurant? Let it go. I was shown, I think, a flash of what the natural nature is, what we're creating or what we're realizing now, and kind of a way to get there. Now, to answer your question, is time speeding up? I actually feel that it's speeding up rapidly, but it's also slowing down dramatically. Like you can have an experience in 9 minutes that was, in literal terms, in linear terms, an hour and a half. But this could be explained in many other ways. What is time? I'm with you here too. I don't feel like time is non existent. I think what it is that time is different in the dimensions that many of us have had experience in or experiences in, but also that we're stepping, our band of frequencies are stepping up vibrationally to a point where that aspect of time or a truer nature of time is coming into our field. And it's, it's pretty cool to me because I know when I'm in lucid dreams, which I have very vivid lucid dreams, I can go from one room, so to speak, to another. And it's almost like, okay, I'm having this experience with Steve-O, and we have this experience, and then I go off to 5 or 6 other adventures, and then I step back into the room, and like no time has passed. I don't know about you, but like in this awakening experience, there'll be many people that I don't have to have the old school relationship with, where I have to say, I love you, Steve, I love you, and let's we're messaging back and forth, and it's really very superficial because we're on the old program. What I've had happening is I might not talk to somebody for 9 months, and there's no static, there's no friction, there's no imbalance. I get on the phone or on the camera with them or message them, and it's like we never even missed a beat. So to me, that's the anomaly from the human perspective that's coming in. And like everything else, if we feel into it and utilize it and acknowledge it and recognize it, it begins to work in our favor, no different than everything else, such as a trauma, such as a memory, whatever's presented to us. Instead of like resisting it or not believing it, we actually, I guess for lack of a better way to say it, buy into it and say, let's try this. And if for nothing else, because we haven't tried it before. So I think the magic works when we engage it, and time is a part of that.
What you were just describing, no lost time between 9 months. And it was interesting that you said 9, because at that moment, there was 72 viewers. 72 is 9.
You can't make this shift up.
You can't. No, it's perfect. So the concept of just letting things flow naturally is something known as organic symbiosis.
Yeah.
Letting it happen the way that it's meant, not trying to control anything.
Right.
Because that'll create anxiety, and we can't control other people. Only ourselves. As much as we wish and desire to, it's just like shooting ourselves in the foot at the end of the day. So time, it's only necessary to look at it as linear until it's no longer necessary for the development and growth of the evolution of the soul.
Yeah.
So how I view time is its perfect stillness. Each moment is a screen capture in the holographic universe, and then the frequency is what we call the milliseconds or the second between each experience. Time doesn't actually move. Nothing really moves.
Yeah.
It just appears.
Right.
It appears. It's a projection of every sentient, conscious being,
Right.
because everything is being observed by everything, which is creating emotion, which is creating the frequencies, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think.
time is, perfect stillness. That's the point of creation.
Yeah.
It's it is, so everything, the only constant in the universe is what? Change. There's never nothing happening, and there's never nothing that changes.
Nothing's happening and everything's happening.
Everything and nothing,
Right.
right?
Uh,
Everything is possible. Nothing's also possible.
yeah.
So nothing is impossible. No thing is, I am possible.
Right.
We all came from nothing. Everything is in the nothingness, right?
Yeah. 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 I think just to conclude it, like time is the time that the time, what we thought time was, is just characteristic of the realm itself. Let's just say pre-awakening. It's a structure of constriction and of pressure and of stress built in a system. You could say capitalism, or you could say whatever you want to say, where we were taking on all these things because somebody told us that's the way it works. I find myself sleeping no hours that make any sense. I can be up till 7 in the morning. I get up at 10:30. I'm running and thinking, how come I'm not just falling on my face tired? So there's
So you're
something
kind of like
happened.
the
Yeah.
flux capacitor in a way, because I've been following you for a while, ever since Michael brought your channel to my attention, and you put out so much content. I'm just like wondering how you do it all, and where are you finding so many amazing people? Because that's one of the things about that I love about your show. It's a broad buffet plate
Mm,
of the full spectrum
mm.
in the electromagnetic spectrum.
That's a
It's
lot.
perfectly balanced and beautiful. I love it.
Well,
And I love your style too, because
uh,
it's just a conversation. There's
yeah,
no
that's right.
expectations, and
Yeah,
we're here to learn from each other. That's it.
yeah. Well, beneath it all, and we've got another show in 10 minutes, but there's a lot to be said for that. But in a nutshell, without getting into all the stories, again, going back to my perspective anyway, that we're basically creating what's within ourselves, outside of ourselves, like a playground. It's external. We get to play. So my feminine is Morgan. My externalized, physicalized feminine is Morgan Lee. And you ask me, for instance, and these would just be little examples to lead into what you were leading to, which is, how do you find these people? Well, beneath Soulogy, and it's not just Todd and Morgan, there is a dance of a masculine and feminine, the same dance within us. And as that evolves and becomes more and more aligned, not only do the roles of the feminine and the masculine play to their strengths individually, but the third energy, the golden child, the vortex that is all of this little mirror or facet of the universe, begins to contribute. So, for instance, Morgan will send out 50 replies to people that want to come on, and she'll give them 8 dates apiece. And then all of the comments, all the replies will come back, and everybody will pick a date. And if you go look at the calendar 30 days in advance, you can almost see the energetic flow and fluctuations of what's going on, to include 17 people get offered the 8th of May, and nobody picks it. What happens and what will happen is, we used to go, oh, we better fill that date. And then she says, in her feminine intuition, she says, there's a reason. So then the 8th would come, and you wake up in the morning and all hell's broke loose, and all you can do is lay flat on your ass all day because you can't do anything else. So there's this, this physicalization of what's occurring within us. And I think it, and have always felt that it is no different than our individual role and perspective, which is to be that which we were made in the image of. And as we create new creations, that which created us and is all of us uh, rebirths, I like to use the term remix. So it's like you take Muddy Waters and you take Jimi Hendrix and you take an electronic DJ and you put them all together and then you make something new, right? But it's really made of everything that makes up everything. So, yeah, it's
Well,
very interesting talking to you.
imagination,
Yeah.
imagination in it,
Hmm.
that's that's tapping into our creative state.
Yeah.
But image is in imagination, and in many ways, we are mirror images of our creator.
Hmm.
And Tor is in creator, our Taurus energy field. So just recognizing that we are divine intelligence because we came from divine intelligence and we have the ability to create as well. This is in the law, and quantum law is the future because we're going to bring together all the polarities.
Yeah.
Okay? Quantum law. Just reconcile all the differences, all the different paradoxes, because this is in their law. They swear on the Bible in a court of law. And in this book that they call the Bible or the Holy Scriptures, Jesus said, "Is it not written in our law that I said, ye are gods?" Small g s,
Right.
right?
Plural.
We are gods. We are
Yeah.
creators.
That's right. Far out, man. It's good talking to you, Steve-O.
It
It's
was
good to
beautiful. I enjoyed it.
it's good to make a friend. We'll have to get together again in 2022. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I love thought-provoking conversations, and I love this type of collaboration. So I just want to say thank you very much, and also thank you for the work that you do, because we all know that what you're doing individually, what we do individually, expands the collective. And I really appreciate your words and your energy. All blessings to you and yours and all your endeavors. And I'll see you again in 2022 if you're up for it.
Perfect. That sounds good. If I could just say one last thing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who is watching, so I have a YouTube channel. That's kind of how I started, and it's just about solutions. Uh, I didn't want it to be all about me, so that's why I'm only bit, you're only as good as your environment, right? So I surround myself with people of all walks of life. So my channel is just Solutions with Steve and then dash O, because I didn't want people mispronouncing it like Stevie-O.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like Steve-O from Jackass,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
minus the Jackass. Yeah.
Minus the
But that's why I
jackass.
have the dash, because Steve-O didn't have a dash, I don't think. So I added that in there. Of course, I made all the business cards and everything else before modification. Hindsight's 2020, perfect vision 2020, coronal mass ejections, COVID, crown, Christ, Christos, Christ consciousness, crystalline, frequency, energy, and vibration, light. That's it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Far out, man. Thank you.
Yeah,
You take care, and I'll see you again. Thank you so much.
I'm good.
All
Thank
right.
you so much for your time, and be well.